Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In the previous lecture, we had started with the topic of transport of oxygen in the blood, and we discussed the transport of oxygen in the blood as oxy-hemoglobin. In today's lecture, we will continue with the same topic and we will learn about oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve in detail, and we will also discuss the factors affecting the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now this topic is also very important from examination point of view, so I want you to listen the lecture very carefully. So we start with the few terms that must be clear when we discuss this topic. The first term, that is the oxygen pressure or oxygen tension. By oxygen pressure or by oxygen tension, we mean the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood. The partial pressure of oxygen in the blood. And oxygen carrying capacity of the blood means the total amount of oxygen which is carried in each 100 ml of blood in dissolved state as well as in combination with hemoglobin. In the previous lecture, we have studied that oxygen is transported in the blood in two forms in combination with hemoglobin, which is known as oxy-hemoglobin, and the second form of transport of oxygen is in dissolved state in the plasma. So the total amount of oxygen which is carried in each 100 ml of blood in both the forms, that is oxy-hemoglobin as well as in dissolved state, is the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. While oxygen carrying capacity of hemoglobin means the amount of oxygen which is transported in the blood in form of oxy-hemoglobin, that we have discussed in the previous lecture, that 19.4 ml of oxygen is transported as oxy-hemoglobin in each 100 ml of blood. And oxygen content means again the total amount of oxygen which is present in the blood, that is both in the dissolved state as well as in combination with hemoglobin, which is oxy-hemoglobin. So these are different terms that must be clear to you. Now we are going to start with the topic, that is oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve shows the increase in the percent saturation of hemoglobin as there is increase in the partial pressure of oxygen. It means that this curve shows a relationship between the partial pressure of oxygen and percentage of hemoglobin which is saturated with oxygen. Hemoglobin saturation at different partial pressure of oxygen is different. So the relation between the percent saturation of hemoglobin and the partial pressure of oxygen, it is shown up by the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now this is the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. In this curve, on x-axis we have different values of partial pressure of oxygen in the blood, which is given in millimeter of mercury, and on the y-axis we have percentage saturation of hemoglobin, means the hemoglobin which is bound with the oxygen given in percentage. So it shows the relationship between the percent saturation of hemoglobin and partial pressure of oxygen. Now from this curve we can see that at low partial pressure of oxygen, here at low partial pressure of oxygen, the percent saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is less, and at high partial pressure of oxygen, the percent saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is more. Or we can say that at high partial pressure of oxygen, hemoglobin binds with the oxygen. Again I am repeating, that at high partial pressure of oxygen, the hemoglobin binds with oxygen, or we can say the affinity of oxygen to bind with the hemoglobin is more, while at low partial pressure of oxygen there is decreased saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, or we can say that the affinity of oxygen or affinity of the hemoglobin to bind with oxygen is low. Now we can see from this curve that relationship between the partial pressure of oxygen and the percent saturation of hemoglobin, it is not a linear relationship. This curve is not linear. So the relationship between partial pressure of oxygen and the percent saturation of hemoglobin, it is not a linear relationship, which means that by making the partial pressure of oxygen doubled, the percentage saturation of hemoglobin is not doubled. Instead, the relationship between these two variables is S-shaped. You can see this is not a linear relationship. Instead, it is S-shaped curve. Now this S-shaped curve is known as sigmoid curve or sigmoid shaped curve. Now this sigmoid shape of the curve is of great physiological importance. I am repeating that sigmoid shape of this curve is of great physiological importance. What is the importance of the sigmoid shape? The importance of sigmoid shape is that it signifies oxygenation and deoxygenation of hemoglobin in an optimum way. Again, I am repeating the significance of the sigmoid shape curve. The sigmoid shape curve, it signifies that oxygenation and deoxygenation of hemoglobin, it occurs in the most optimum way. Now this curve can be divided into two parts, an upper part and a lower part. In the upper part of the curve, between 60 to 100 millimeter of mercury, the curve is relatively flat. Again, I am repeating, we can divide this curve into two parts, an upper part and a lower part. In the upper part of the curve, in the pressure range of 60 to 100 millimeter of mercury, it is the pressure of oxygen in the blood. Now the curve in this pressure range is relatively flat. Now in this range, an increase in the partial pressure of oxygen does not produce a great increase in the percent saturation of hemoglobin. You can see it very clearly in this graph. Again, I am repeating that in the pressure range of 60 to 100 millimeter of mercury, an increase in PO2 causes a small increase in the percent saturation of hemoglobin. While in the lower part of the curve, between 0 to 60 millimeter of mercury, in this pressure range, a small increase in the partial pressure of oxygen results in a large change in the extent to which hemoglobin is combined with oxygen. I am repeating, in the lower part of the curve, which ranges from 0 to 60 millimeter of mercury, a small increase in the partial pressure of oxygen will cause a large change in the extent to which the hemoglobin is combined with oxygen. So in the lower part of the curve, this relationship is relatively linear and the curve is steeper. In the upper part, it is relatively flat, and in the lower part, it is relatively steeper. Now in the upper part it ensures the maximum oxygenation of the hemoglobin, while in the lower part it ensures that oxygen is delivered to the tissues at lower PO2. So this was about the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now from this curve we can also see that at partial pressure of 95 millimeter of mercury, which is in the arterial blood, the percent saturation of hemoglobin is 97%. While at partial pressure of 40 millimeter of mercury, which is the partial pressure of oxygen in the venous blood, still 75% of hemoglobin is saturated with oxygen. That is, when the blood passes through the systemic capillaries, only 25% of its oxygen is released to the tissues and rest is still present bound to the hemoglobin. So in the venous blood at partial pressure of 40 millimeter of mercury, 75% of hemoglobin is still saturated with oxygen. Now we will move on to the factors affecting the dissociation of oxy-hemoglobin. There are several factors that affect the dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin, and by affecting the dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin, they can cause shift of the oxy-hemoglobin dissociation curve either to the left side or to the right side. Now what does right or leftward shift of the curve mean? A rightward shift of the curve means that at any particular partial pressure of oxygen, more oxygen will be dissociated from hemoglobin. Thus, more oxygen will be delivered to the tissues. Again, I am repeating, different factors that affect the dissociation of oxygen and hemoglobin shift the oxy-hemoglobin dissociation curve either to the right or to the left. Rightward shift means there is more dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and more oxygen is delivered to the tissues. Or we can say, when the curve is shifted to the right side, the affinity of oxygen to bind with the hemoglobin is less. While when the curve is shifted to the left side, it means it has opposite effect. That is, at any partial pressure of oxygen, leftward shift means less oxygen will be dissociated from hemoglobin. Or we can say that the binding affinity of oxygen with the hemoglobin is increased. So when binding affinity is increased, less oxygen is dissociated from the hemoglobin, and when binding affinity is decreased, more oxygen is dissociated from the hemoglobin. So more oxygen is dissociated from the hemoglobin when the curve is shifted to the right, and less oxygen is dissociated from the hemoglobin when the curve is shifted to the left. Now look at this diagram. This is in the center. This is normal oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, this purple one. Now this pink curve shows us the shift of the curve to the right side. Right side shift of the curve means more dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin, or the binding affinity between the two variables, that is oxygen and hemoglobin, is less. And this blue curve shows a leftward shift of the curve, and leftward shift of the curve means that less oxygen is dissociated from the hemoglobin, or the binding affinity between oxygen and hemoglobin is more. So now we are going to see different factors that will cause either the curve to be shifted to the right side or to the left side. The first factor that we are going to discuss is the hydrogen ion concentration. The first factor that we are going to discuss is the hydrogen ion concentration or the pH. If there is increase in hydrogen ion concentration, which means acidosis, the curve is shifted to the right side. I am repeating. If there is increase in the hydrogen ion concentration, which means acidosis or a fall in pH, it will shift the curve to the right side. While alkalosis, which is a decrease in hydrogen ion concentration or an increase in pH, will shift the curve to the left side. It means when there is high hydrogen ions, more oxygen will be dissociated from the hemoglobin, and when there are less hydrogen ions, less oxygen will be dissociated from the hemoglobin. When a person is exercising, the pH of the exercising muscles is decreased. This decrease in the pH of exercising muscles is due to formation of lactic acid. Now, accumulation of lactic acid cause the shift of the curve to the right side, and this facilitates the dissociation of more oxygen from the hemoglobin, thus supplying more oxygen to the exercising muscles. Now, the next factor that we are going to discuss is the effect of carbon dioxide. Increase in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, it favors the dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin. Again, I am repeating. Increase in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, or we can say increased concentration of carbon dioxide, favors the dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin. It means it will shift the curve to the right side, and this helps in unloading of oxygen from the hemoglobin in the tissues, because carbon dioxide is an end product of tissue metabolism. Its concentration is more in the cells and in the interstitium. So in the tissues, when the blood is passing through the capillaries, increase carbon dioxide, it will cause dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin, and this will help in delivering the oxygen to the tissues. Now, the influence of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions on the release of oxygen from hemoglobin is known as Bohr's effect. So, we have discussed two factors affecting oxygen hemoglobin dissociation: hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide. Increase in both of these factors causes the shift of the curve to the right side, and it facilitates the delivery of oxygen to the tissues. Now, this effect of this influence of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions on the release of oxygen from hemoglobin is known as Bohr's effect. Both the hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide bind with the hemoglobin, but the site where the carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions bind with hemoglobin is different, is other than the oxygen binding site. The binding of hydrogen and carbon dioxide with the hemoglobin reduces the affinity of hemoglobin to bind with oxygen, and that's how the oxygen is dissociated and it is released and it is transported to the tissues. Now next is the effect of temperature. Increase in temperature shifts the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right side. Exercising muscles have increased metabolic activity, which results in production of more heat. Increased production of heat in the exercising muscle raises the temperature to about 2 to 3 degrees, and this helps in unloading greater amount of oxygen to the tissues during exercise. So increased body temperature causes dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin, and it helps in or it facilitates the delivery of oxygen to the tissues. The next factor that we are going to learn is 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. Now 2,3-biphosphoglycerate is a factor which is present inside the RBCs. The above factors that we have discussed, they are present surrounding the RBCs. They affect the environment of the RBCs in which they are present. But 2,3-biphosphoglycerate is a factor which is present within the red blood cells themselves. It is a constituent of RBCs, and 2,3-biphosphoglycerate is produced during red cell metabolism. Now this 2,3-biphosphoglycerate, it can bind reversibly with hemoglobin. Now when it binds with the hemoglobin, it reduces the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. I am repeating that 2,3-biphosphoglycerate, it can bind with the hemoglobin. In fact, it binds with the beta chains of the hemoglobin. And binding of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate with the hemoglobin reduces its affinity for the oxygen. So again, the 2,3-biphosphoglycerate, when it is more in concentration, it facilitates the delivery of oxygen to the tissues by causing the dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin. Now there are different factors that cause increased formation of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. Hypoxia is one of the most important stimulant for the RBC's production of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. Hypoxia stimulates the formation of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate in the RBCs. Now, a person may be exposed to hypoxic environment, like people living at high altitude where partial pressure of oxygen in the environment is low. So more 2,3-biphosphoglycerate will be formed, and it will facilitate the delivery of oxygen to the tissues. Now hypoxia can occur because of some respiratory diseases as well. That is, if a person is suffering from a respiratory disease that results in inadequate oxygenation of the blood, so that tissues are having less supply of oxygen, again it will stimulate the formation of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. Similarly, 2,3-biphosphoglycerate formation is also increased in certain circulatory conditions, again which are associated with hypoxia or anemia, in which decreased amount of hemoglobin is there, so that oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is decreased and tissue will suffer from hypoxia. So hypoxia is very important stimulant for the formation of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. Then there are certain hormones which also stimulate the formation of this compound present within the RBCs. These hormones include the thyroid hormone, growth hormone, and testosterone. Thyroid hormone, growth hormone, and testosterone stimulate the formation of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. So these were different factors that increase the formation of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate, which is also known as 2,3-BPG. Now, the stored blood, it has decreased concentration of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. If a person is given stored blood, it will has less amount of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. So we can say that in stored blood, the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve is slightly shifted to the left side. Another important point to remember about this compound is that fetal hemoglobin, it cannot bind with the 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. And the reason for this is that the fetal hemoglobin, it has 2 alpha chains and 2 gamma chains. Again, I am repeating this point, that fetal hemoglobin does not have the ability to bind with 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. And the reason is that fetal hemoglobin, it has 2 alpha chains and 2 gamma chains. Fetal hemoglobin does not have beta chains, while 2,3-BPG, it binds with the beta chains. So beta chains are not there in the fetal hemoglobin, so it does not bind with the 2,3-BPG. Now this is favorable for the fetus. One thing is that in the fetus, the oxy-hemoglobin dissociation curve is shifted to the left because hemoglobin in the fetus does not bind 2,3-BPG. But this is favorable for the fetus. Why? Because the fetus has to extract oxygen from the maternal blood. So more binding affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen, it enables the fetus to extract oxygen from the maternal blood, or we can say that oxygen transport across the placenta is facilitated because of this reason. So this was about the 2,3-BPG. Now the next factor that we are going to discuss is exercise. Now in exercise, there is more dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and curve is shifted to the right side. Now in exercise, there are different factors which cause the shift of the curve to the right side, and those factors we have just discussed, that during exercise there is more metabolism, more formation of acid, so hydrogen ion concentration is increased, which will help in dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and will shift the curve to the right side. Then there is more carbon dioxide because more metabolic activity going on in the exercising muscle. Again, this factor will shift the curve to the right side, and then more heat production increases the temperature in the muscles, which also shifts the curve to the right side. Moreover, during exercise, the formation of 2,3-BPG is also increased. So all these factors in exercise will shift the curve to the right side, and there will be more delivery of oxygen to the tissues. The next factor that we are going to discuss is carbon monoxide. We will study in detail about carbon monoxide in next lecture, But here you just remember that carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas which is present under abnormal conditions. It is not normally present in the atmosphere or in the environment. It is present under abnormal conditions. When we are going to study it in detail, we will see which conditions are associated with increased carbon monoxide formation. Here we will just learn the effect of carbon monoxide on oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. So carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas, and when it is inhaled, it binds with the hemoglobin instead of oxygen, and it shifts the curve to the left side by decreasing the dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin, whatever amount is bound to the hemoglobin. I am repeating this point, that carbon monoxide has also the ability or capability to bind with the hemoglobin. By binding with the hemoglobin, the first thing that it does is it reduces the amount of oxygen which is bound with the hemoglobin. And second effect of carbon monoxide is to decrease the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin. So by decreasing the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin, it will shift the curve to the left side. Next is methemoglobin. Methemoglobin is an impurity, and it is present in small amount even in normal persons. So methemoglobin concentration, if it increases, it shifts the curve to the left side. Next is fetal hemoglobin. We have discussed in detail about the fetal hemoglobin. Here we will just say that fetal hemoglobin, because it does not have the capability to bind with 2,3-BPG. So in fetus, the curve is shifted to the left side. And last, about the hormones. Again, the hormones we have discussed in relation to 2,3-BPG, but as a separate point, we can again write about the hormones. We can also talk about the hormones. So thyroid hormone, growth hormone, and testosterone cause shift of the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right side by increasing the formation of 2,3-BPG. I am repeating that thyroid hormone, growth hormone, and testosterone, they shift the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right side by increasing the formation of 2,3-BPG. So here are different factors that affect the dissociation of the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, either to the right side or to the left side. So increased carbon dioxide concentration, as we just discussed, will shift the curve to the right side. Increased hydrogen ion also have the same effect. It shifts the curve to the right side, and the influence of both of these is known as Bohr's effect. While a decrease in the concentration of carbon dioxide or a decrease in the concentration of hydrogen ions will shift the curve to the left side. Some more factors: increase in temperature, it will shift the curve to the right side, and increase in BPG will also shift the curve to the right side. So these are different factors that affect the dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin. Now one important point is left, that is P50. So P50, it's a value which can give us a fair idea about the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. P50, again I am repeating, it's a value which can give us a fair idea about the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now what is this P50? Now P50 is actually, it is the partial pressure. It is the partial pressure of oxygen at which hemoglobin is 50% saturated with oxygen. I am repeating the definition of P50. P50 is the partial pressure of oxygen at which hemoglobin is 50% saturated with oxygen. Now we can see from this graph what is the value of this partial pressure of oxygen at which it is 50% saturated with the oxygen. So this is the 50% saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. We'll trace and we will trace it down. So we can see it is 26 approximately. So the value of P50 is 26 millimeter of mercury. That is, at 26 millimeter of mercury, the hemoglobin is half saturated, 50% saturated with oxygen. Now what is the significance of knowing this value of P50? We just said that it gives us a fair idea about the curve, whether it is shifted to the right or it will shift to the left, or it can tell us whether there will be more dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin, which is the rightward shift, or there will be less dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin, which is the leftward shift. Now how can we know about it? We can know about it by the value of P50. Normal value of P50 is 26 millimeter of mercury. Now if the P50 value is increased, let's say it increases from 26 millimeter of mercury to 35 millimeter of mercury. So this increase in P50, it signifies more dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and the rightward shift of the curve. So we can also see this in this graph. This is the rightward shift of the curve shifted to the right side. So in this we can see the P50 value. This is the 50% saturation of hemoglobin. So we will trace it like this and we can see here. So it is approximately, you can say around 35 millimeter of mercury. So if you know the P50 value, you can know about the shift of the curve. So increase in the P50 value, it signifies more dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and the shift of the curve to the right side, while a decrease in the P50 value will signify the opposite effect. That is, it will signify that there is less dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and the curve is shifted to the left side. So we can also trace it in the leftward curve. So this is the curve which is shifted to the left side. Here this is 50% saturation of hemoglobin. We will trace it downward. So we can see here this P50 value is approximately 20. So it is decreased. So decrease in the P50 value can tell you that there is less dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin and there is a leftward shift of the curve. So by just knowing the P50 value, we can have an idea about the state of the curve, that whether it is shifted to the right side or it is shifted to the left side. So that's all about today. I will stop here, and in the next lecture we will talk about the transport of oxygen in the dissolved state, and I will also tell you some important short essay question that can come from the topics that we have discussed in the last 4 lectures. So we will talk about the questions coming from the gas exchange in the lungs, and we will talk about the SCQs coming from the oxygen transport in the blood. So that's all for today. Thank you for your listening. I hope you understand the lecture.